All right, so what's going on, good people? Eric Armstrong here and Jared Shore. Welcome to the Entrepreneur podcast. This is episode 5. So I'm thankful for everybody who's been kind of like keeping up with us and just kind of like growing with us as we take step by step. So don't forget to check out entrepreneur.com if you want to learn how to acquire real estate and or wholesale. That being stated, let me introduce our guest today, Jared Shore. He is a loan officer. And let me say less and tell the people about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, appreciate you having me on. And
no doubt.
What a pleasure
Cheers.
to be here. Yeah, absolutely. Cheers. Got a little Wathans today.
I appreciate the gift. I appreciate the gift.
We'll have a little dessert whiskey later on. But no, I absolutely appreciate you inviting me to come on. And, so what a pleasure. So, no, like I said, my name's Jared Shore. I'm a loan officer with Finance of America. And I work for a small branch in Noblesville, Parker Mortgage. We're actually the only Finance of America branch in Indiana, which is pretty cool. So a lot of you out-of-state investors, that are looking to buy properties in Indiana, we're right here.
Gotcha.
And Finance of America is a huge company, but we just, we kind of have a little niche right here. So,
but as you said earlier, you're full service. So if somebody needs financing for their personal purchase, you could assist them with that.
Yeah. So what makes Finance of America unique, and what makes, I guess, ultimately myself unique, is I can do both sides of the spectrum. We have Finance of America Mortgage, which is all your conventional, your Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA loans, kind of your standard, lending.
Okay.
And then we have a whole nother side of our business that we call commercial, which is very investor friendly, LLC type lending. So.
Gotcha. So we met at a investor meetup.
Mm-hmm.
What was that place called?
Level Up.
And Level Up. That was in Irvington.
Which I think one of your previous guests was one of the speakers there.
Yeah, Sahar. Yeah. So I met Sahar through Fortune Builders a couple of times, but actually the guy that told me about that was his partner, his old partner. He sells insurance now. Francisco.
Oh yeah,
Francisco.
I know his name.
So Francisco actually let me know that was going on, forwarded the invite to me, and that's when I went and just kind of like got to meet a couple of you guys. That's where I met you as well. And so initially, when I met Jared, every time I go to a meetup, I always try to interact with at least 3 people. But our number one job as entrepreneurs and investors is to acquire capital. Therefore, I was intentional about, getting to know you and talking to you post the meetup to really understand the product and everything that you had to offer. So I already had people that I already kind of like was involved with or companies that I was kind of like invested into. Yet, it never hurts to build more relationships. Sure. So I touched.
What's funny about that? I'll cut you off for a second.
No doubt.
There were how many people were at that? I mean, a dozen, maybe 18.
I would say anywhere between 15 to 18 people.
Yep. So out of that many people, when we talk about networking, building relationships, there's only one person I remember out of all that, and it was you. Because we were you were intentional about engaging and talking, and it wasn't we were talking about business, but we were also we were building a relationship there. Even if it was just really short, you made it a point to set yourself apart from everybody. I could not tell you anybody else that was at that meetup except for you, because you made it a point to come. And I guess the encouragement there is go out and meet people, and don't even if you're going to these events to gather information, right? Information is great, right? Information is power. Knowledge is power. However, a lot of this game is relationships and who you know. And, if you go to these things, whatever it is, if you're out and about, COVID put a little bit of damper on that, but set yourself apart a little bit.
Great advice. And so I always tell people in my class, because we have like weekly, like private Zoom calls, and I always tell them like to get involved because when you first got here, we literally talked about, well, when I'm speaking to the audience, I like to break things down just because we're talking, to people who are learning. And you instantly said that it's natural for us to speak the language.
Right.
And to really like, embrace that, you kind of got to be involved in it daily.
Yep.
It's almost like learning Spanish in high school, but you really don't know
You're
it.
not knowing, you know the
until
basics.
you go to the country for about 3 to 4 months, then you start really like applying the language and using the language.
Sure.
So
it's easy because I mean, heck, I see more mortgages probably in a day than the average person sees in their entire lifetime.
Oh, I believe that.
You know, so being able to break it down into, all right, you've never done this before, and making sure you're comfortable with it is a huge part of it as well.
Got you. So let's segue into this. I was at the meeting, but at that meeting, you weren't really like displaying your products for, personal residential. You were talking to investors.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as I stated, the number one thing any entrepreneur, regardless of the industry, they should pursue capital to really get started.
Sure.
And credit lines to really like enhance and scale their growth. So, tell them about your investor-friendly products.
Yep.
And then we'll talk about eligibility.
Sure. So I'm sure everybody's heard of the BRRRR method, right?
Yes. So for those that don't know what the BRRRR method is, it means you buy, you rehab, you rent, and then you refi. Again, you buy, rehab, rent, and refi.
Yep.
So let me explain that just a little bit more in depth.
Absolutely.
So the process of acquiring real estate takes place first. But before you do that, you have to get qualified with the lender like Jared and his company. Then what happens is you basically are showing that you have the purchase power to whoever you're buying from. You get them under contract, and I teach that at entrepreneur-to-entrepreneur.com. So make sure you take the acquisitions course. Then you go through the rehab process, which Jared is going to talk about. He assists with that. Mm-hmm. So he helps you purchase, and he helps you with the rehab costs. Then after you're done rehabbing the property, you force the appreciation of the value, meaning that you purchased it at $50,000, you did $100,000 in repairs. Now the property's worth $250,000. Now, this time with a BRRRR method, you're not flipping the property. You're putting a tenant in there. So you're going to rent it. It's important that you rent the property first before you refinance. Yeah. Because when you put a tenant in there, it's no longer looked as a debt. It's actually looked as a asset that's cash flowing.
Income producing asset.
Correct. And it doesn't really go too much towards your debt to debt ratio. I mean, it does, but only 75%.
If it's a good deal and you're making more money than what your mortgage payment is, it's actually helping your debt to income. It should
100%. So then you refinance it. So he's going to walk through that process for you guys from a lender's perspective. But then you refinance it because now it's a cash flowing asset. Now he's not evaluating you. He's evaluating the deal.
Right.
Your credit just basically affects your interest rate. Is that fair to say?
It's a piece of it, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So let me not interject. I wanted just to define that. But
well, and I think another point to add when you refinance, the reason you're refinancing, and the last piece of that the BRRRR, right, is to repeat.
Yes.
And if you do it right, and you do good deals, and not every deal is going to be like a great BRRRR, right? Like, but if you do find that good BRRRR, you're from a liquidity standpoint, right? You're bringing cash out of your pocket for that first deal.
Correct.
And then, but what you're doing is you're using cash from the second deal to do, or the first deal to do the second deal to do the third deal, and you really shouldn't be using your cash anymore. It should be cash from the equity of the property. So it should be a pretty good, gotcha. I guess using the equity from the property.
Sorry about that. We got a phone that is still on.
This dude's too popular. He's got too many.
Cut it out. You turn the ringer off. They're liable to call back. All right.
Awesome. That's awesome. So let's.
So you were explaining the BRRRR method.
The BRRRR method.
So explain to them how you could assist them with the original purchase,
yep,
and then the refinance of it.
Yep. So I'm going to start with the LLC lending side, because our products really follow the BRRRR method. Because where I come into play is your buy and your rehab portion up front, and then your refinance portion. So basically, all that is going to be on the lending side. And before I go too far into that, one thing that I always tell my investors that I work with is we should really be looking at the refinance side first before you acquire the deal, because what you don't want to do is get into a property, right, where now you're trapped. So and you have no exit strategy.
So to explain that, basically when you refinance, 80%?
75% is going to be your maximum loan to value, and loan to value being after it's rehabbed what the property is worth. So let's, for easy conversation purpose, let's say your home's worth $100,000. Your maximum loan amount is going to be $75,000.
Correct. That's on a refinance.
On a refinance.
That means that the property, your closing cost, and the labor to fix the property should be under $75,000.
Yep. And I should point out that's on a single family unit as well.
Correct.
So once you get into that 2 to 4 unit, it's going to limit it usually to 70%. But
fair enough. Fair enough. But again, the property, closing costs, and refinancing, and labor costs should be less than 75% at purchase to make sure that you're basically not coming out of pocket at the end of the deal to close that out. But go ahead.
Yeah, no. So let's start with the B, right? The buy, and we'll throw the rehab in there too. So we literally have what we call an exposure limit, or sometimes we call it a fix and flip line of credit. And what that is designed for is exactly buying and rehabbing. And there's a few options you can do within that, but really it's, you're buying it, and it's an interest only for 12 months. So you can pay it off sooner than that, but
any penalties?
No penalties. Okay. No penalties at all. So interest only. It's going to cover your acquisition cost. There may be, depending on it, and some of this has experience involved, right? So if you're a brand new, never done a deal in your life in the investor world, you're probably gonna have to bring a little bit more out of pocket from a down payment side. You know, if you're an experienced investor, 3+ units, each deal you do with us, you're gonna get a little bit better terms.
So when you say 3+ units, if somebody had 3 rentals, would they qualify, or are you talking about 3 flips?
Either.
Okay.
So in the last 36 months, last 3 years, if you've flipped a property, that counts as one. If you hold a property, that's one.
Gotcha. So basically, you want to see
any type of
transformation.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So meaning that you took it from distress and showed appreciation in the property.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. Okay. Then the next step.
So the next step is your rehab costs, right? So this line of credit will cover it all. Most of the time, you can go up to 100% of your rehab. Each property is going to be a little bit different, but so it's going to cover your acquisition and your rehab costs into that. And one thing that I think is cool on your site that we were just looking at before we went on is how to analyze your repair costs, right?
Yes.
Because that's a huge part of the deal. Because if you miss on that, because you have to submit a budget to us, right? What your repairs are going to be, and we actually give that to the appraiser. So when they do that deal, they're going to give us 2 values. They're going to give us the as-is value, and then they're going to give us an ARV value based on what you're going to do to the property. Gotcha. So if you miss on that budget, like it can make or break your deal.
Gotcha. So every Saturday, I basically have been doing a repair cost estimate class to teach young investors how to assess properties. Going into distressed properties can be intimidating, but the truth is that we have to, face our fears and walk into those properties, because that's where the cash is at. I always state, the more repairs you have to do, the more cash is in the deal for you as far as return on investment. But the less repairs that you make, the less the profit. So we want to go into the ugliest properties, really get them fixed up and going to really get the best return. So, to continue, what's the next step?
Yep. So the next step is obviously get a renter in there, right?
Gotcha.
Get your renter in there. And with our loans, so we don't use any income to qualify. So if you're a self-employed borrower, we don't need your tax returns.
So they could be like self-employed for like 2 days.
You don't even have to have a job, right? Like that's
okay.
Because, and I jokingly say that, the reason being is because we're analyzing these properties on cash flow of the property.
So you're evaluating the deal, not the person.
Right, exactly. Now this is not on conventional lending. This is on the LLC side. So when you get to the refinance piece, we will use your rent. And if you just completed the project, there is a time frame where you don't have to have a renter.
What is that time frame?
Usually 30 to 60 days.
Okay.
It could be a little less than that, but the quicker you can get a renter in there, it's better for you anyway. Because now you're cash flowing on the property, and you're not just paying a mortgage payment on it. So yeah, we're going to analyze the cash flow of the property, and as long as that cash flow is essentially more than what your mortgage payment is on it, you're qualified.
You're lending. Now, I am going to give them a drawback. So, the plus side with Jared's organization is this: if I go to a conventional bank like a Chase, Huntington Bank, or just a local credit union, and I go refinance my property with them, they may give me a low rate today. It may be like 3.8, 3.6, depending on what it is today, which is absolutely great for a rental property. But the truth is, we have a limit of 10 on the conventional side.
10.
So I have 18 rentals, so I could only really put 9 on a loan like that because they count my personal home as one of those conventional loans.
Yep.
All right. So what I've done after that was use my Conrad that does the same thing that you do. And so the benefit to having somebody like Jared is that you don't have a limit.
Right.
You could do
100 of them if you want.
Yeah, yeah.
Now here's the game people play though, because there's a little bit of a game in making sure you're using those 9 spots wisely. Mm-hmm. So if you can qualify for a conventional loan right now to refinance, I say do it. And here's why. Because rates are so much. I mean, if you would have asked me pre-COVID in January of last year, December, January, there was, and I'm not going to go into like specifics of rates, but the rates were very similar between a conventional loan and the investor side. Right. Now we're talking a huge difference, especially if you get into some bigger loan amounts, $150,000, $200,000 loans. I mean, the interest rate can play a pretty big impact on what your cash flow is going to be, right?
Yeah.
So if you can do it on the conventional side, I say all day do it, just because you're going to get a better deal. Now, the game people play is they'll use up all 9 of their spots, and then you can go refinance all 9 of those into a portfolio loan or refinance them into the LLC side.
I just did that.
Yeah, and now you just opened up your 9 spots again, and boom, you're kind of Burr methoding your own properties. And opening up spots to cash flow more.
So what Jerry just said was basically you can use the conventional bank to do each home one by one as you're going through your projects. But when you cap there, basically you put them into a balloon loan with a conventional bank. But this is the thing about the conventional bank. They are going to look at your debt ratio.
Yep.
So they are going to say, well, you make this much money.
Yep.
And how you assess a deal, basically you assess cash flow. They assess cash flow as well too, but
and so the cool thing is I do conventional loans as well.
Oh, there it is.
So right, so we can do both. So what's interesting about it is yes, the really the only, it's going to be more. I don't know what the right word is. It's going to be a better deal if you're a W-2 employee,
right?
If you're self-employed for 2+ years,
Makes sense.
you've been doing, this is more of a, hey, I'm building my portfolio. This isn't my full-time job portfolio type deal. And even if it is your full-time job and you've got a good CPA, right?
Yes.
Then
yes. Shout out to Jerry Brawley. That's my CPA. He's that guy.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
okay. And so basically, what I'm hearing that I hope everybody's hearing is this. If you turn in a deal to Jared, remember that he's going to give his inspector basically the repair cost sheet.
Yep.
So you need to learn how to do repairs. That means that you need to be in class at 10 o'clock this Saturday. Make sure that you text me at 317-597-2347 to sign up. I go step by step inside and outside of the house, and I'll show you how I basically, do my repair cost estimate in order to basically show you how we do it. But I didn't turn that into my banker. I mean, to you, and to my loan officer, I'm sorry. And then you could say, hey, like this doesn't fit what we want to lend into. Correct? You could decline.
Oh, all day.
All right. So.
Yeah. Well, first off, we wouldn't even do the loan if you didn't turn in a sheet.
Well, what I'm saying is if I turned in a deal, but it wasn't a deal.
Well, So here's what I always tell them: if you give me a deal, right, I'm going to walk you through it and make sure that, hey, this is a deal. But ultimately, it's what you're taking a risk on is the property value, your ARV. So if you don't do that budget right, then what you're risking is that appraised value doesn't come in where it should be or needs to be for the deal to be done. And so you're risking an appraisal cost out of your pocket. So you do that multiple times. I mean, appraisals are, let's call it $500-$600 a pop. Easy. And you mess up on 2 deals. I mean, you're out a grand just on 2 deals.
So this is what I was going to say. In essence, Jared is your mentor to ensure that it is a deal.
Well, and here's the
period.
I only get paid when deals close.
I get that.
I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to waste my time if I know a deal isn't going to close, right?
No, I apologize about that. But in essence, as young investors, if a deal gets declined, that means that you're not really taking the proper steps to evaluate that deal.
Right.
And a lot of us get emotional when we're doing that first 2 or 3, 4 deals. We get attached, but if you let us know that, hey, like, that's not going to work.
Well, and from my perspective too, is I want to make sure that, especially if you're a newer investor, like, your first couple deals are a really great experience, because you'll realize real quickly, it doesn't matter what aspect you're in real estate. If you're a real estate agent, if you're an investor, a wholesaler, a lender, a title agent, whatever you work, this is stressful job. A stressful job. So if we can make those first, especially the first couple, just a really, really great experience, like, you're going to keep doing this.
100%.
And what we don't want to do is discourage you, right? So you're absolutely right. Like, 50% of my job is being a mentor and making sure that,
I'm sorry, I got you some more students. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's great. Is taking the stress, because this is you're investing money, right? Mm-hmm. And making sure that the stress level's down, because there's going to be things that you haven't experienced yet during the transaction. And my job is to walk you through that to make sure, right, that you have a good experience.
Gotcha. Something that they need to know about your construction loan or your fix and flip loan is basically that they got to have a little bit of money up front. Is that correct? Because they got
a little bit.
So, like, let's say, for instance, I got the house, I went to closing, and now the repairs are going to get started. I'm going to start with the roof, and I'm going to start with the siding. Let's say roof, I'm $6,000 in, parts of labor, siding, kind of $7,000 in. That's $13,000. I'm going to come out of pocket, pay my contractors, and then I'm going to report to your company that, hey, I've concluded this part of my repair estimate, and then they're going to come and verify it, and then they disperse back to me.
Nailed it right on the head.
Boom.
And there's nothing even to add to that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
You nailed that right on the head.
I just wanted to make sure that's how it works.
Because all the repair costs are going to go into what we call an escrow account, right?
Correct.
And then, so like you mentioned, when a portion of that, and you can do it as quickly or as long as you want, and it's also really good. I always talk to investors about building your team, right? Building all the people surrounding you that are going to make you money.
Right.
And one of those is having a really good contractor, right? And so,
which is hard to find.
It's very, very hard to find. It's very hard to find. And part of that is having the upfront conversation with those contractors that, hey, the first portion of this work, like, either I need you to fund it, or come up with something, because and this is pretty typical with most lenders, right? Is we're not going to give you that first draw until the some of the work is done, and we send that appraiser back out to verify that some of that work has been done.
Gotcha.
So having the right expectations, which is a good rule to follow in anything, but setting right expectations and setting that right expectations with the contractor. Is
so
huge.
Typically, from the point I turn it in that the work's completed, about how long does the reimbursement take?
About 48 to 72 hours.
Gotcha. Too easy. Wire to my account.
Yep.
Boom. Got it. All right. So, next, let's go into this. So, first-time investors, that's not your client.
I love them.
Oh, okay. All right.
I love them.
Now, when they're first-time investors, like, what type of mistakes do they make? Or what assumptions do they have that are incorrect about what you do?
Ooh. So I'm going to answer the first question because an answer popped in my head, and then you changed the question on me.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So the biggest mistake I see that new investors do is they wait too long. Because they're in information overload. They're on all this. You know, they're on Bigger Pockets and all. They're listening to podcasts like this. They're
Talking
just
shit.
soaking up information, and they almost get into like analysis paralysis. Right? They don't want to do it because they're like, I have to find this perfect deal. Yeah. Right? They have to find this perfect deal.
Ziggy, Lord knows our projects ain't perfect. This shit fucked up everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, you're never gonna. I mean, if you find that perfect deal, like, kudos to you. But there's never a perfect deal. There's always something that's gonna come up, right? I mean, there's always something.
Gotcha.
And so that would be my advice to new investors: is do it. You know, do it.
Just get started.
Get started, because you're only gonna learn. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna fail. And
that's the cost of education.
Right. Yep. And so I feel like there's sometimes I wish investors would, you know, we talked about making the first transaction and first couple very smooth, but sometimes I want them to learn a little bit too along the way. And I think if it goes so smooth that you didn't learn anything,
you don't learn shit.
Right, then then
I got you.
Great, you're gonna make a lot of money on that deal. And that's awesome. But the next deal, when it goes a little bit awry, like, you're gonna be like, this isn't what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. And I hope every deal that every one of you do is just the easiest, cleanest, no issues, no hiccups.
So one thing I do is, in my repair estimates, let's say they come up to $70,000. I always give myself a 10% cushion.
We require a 10% contingency.
All right.
We require it.
So if my repairs came up to basically 70,000, I basically would put, you know, that my repairs were 77,000, just because there's going to be some things I didn't see.
Yep.
Some cabinets were there, and therefore I didn't see that I needed some new subflooring, and it was mold behind there.
Yep.
And so we had to mediate that and everything. So gotcha. Now, fix and flip loans that I've utilized, they typically take my liquid assets and they like have a multiplier. Does yours work like that?
Multiplier in terms of like reserves?
Yeah. So like, let's say I had $100,000 in the bank account. They'll qualify me. You know, whatever they have, they'll qualify me, and they'll say, hey, we're going to give you 10 times what you have in liquid reserves.
Got it.
And so they'll give me $1 million credit.
Yeah.
Is that how you?
No, that's a great question. Pre-COVID, absolutely. Post-COVID, they changed the whole ball game.
All right, what's the ball game?
Here's the cool thing. Here's the cool, this is one of, you know, usually when there's changes in the mortgage world, it's not for the better. COVID,
I agree,
has, and it sucked for everybody because nobody could get lending during COVID, right? I mean, it was.
Hey, so we was talking about that. I was calling you every week.
Man, literally, we talked probably like at least once every other week, because it was like, hey, our products are coming. They're going to be relaunched. And it was like, hey, there's in 2 more weeks, I promise. In 2 more weeks, I promise. And then they launched it.
Okay.
And they made some changes, and it was awesome changes. So what it used to be was you had to have liquidity, and that was what you qualified with. So if you had $50,000 in the bank, we multiply that by 10, and we give you $500,000 line of credit, and that was the minimum. You had to have $50,000 in liquidity to even qualify. Now you get $500,000 no matter what.
Okay.
Brand new investor, $500,000.
Okay.
If you have experience, we'll give you a little more, but $500,000 just right off the bat. And now that's not $500,000. You just go like, hey, I'm going to Home Depot and stroking a check. Like, this is to buy and rehab properties specifically. So then it comes down to the property itself. We're going to qualify it on the property. And each one of those properties then has reserve requirements. So not only, your down payment piece of it, your closing cost piece of it, but then your reserves. As a newbie, if you will, you're going to have to come up with a little bit more reserves. This isn't money you're spending. This is money you have to show in the bank. Right?
You got to have skin in the game.
You got to have some skin in the game. And that's because
you're a higher risk.
You're a risky borrower. You're risky,
you're
right?
Risk. It's just it is what it is.
Yeah.
You're learning, so hey, it costs a little bit more to learn.
Yep. So, and that's why I said earlier, you know, the more you do, the better those terms are, the less reserves you're going to have. So yeah, if you're a brand new investor, we'll give you $500,000. Okay. You just have to have the money to buy it.
Okay. And what are the qualifications in just general qualifications? I know it's per property and individual.
So for
just general qualifications today, because those are new to me.
Yeah.
I'm used to, you know, I have a $4 million.
That was a big change.
I have a $4 million credit line, but I gave him $400,000, and he just basically times 10. So that would definitely shorten my leash.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But if you said, you know, you're giving more to experienced investors, I'm pretty sure there's some wiggle room.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, no, $500,000 is just you know, for that entry level.
Understood.
$500,000 sounds like a lot, right?
But then not when your repair costs are like 150, the property is 60.
I mean, it might be 2 or 3 properties if you're doing it at the same time.
And to be honest with you, man, 2 or 3 properties is pretty aggressive at the same time. Yeah. For somebody.
It's a lot of stress.
Yeah. Oh,
stress-free.
Tell them we have like 4 properties going right now, bro. It's wild. It's like sometimes I'm just like, man, hop in the car. I'm like, man, it's a day in the life. And he gets done and he's just like, man, bro. Right. I'm like, hey, we talked to such. What's his name? He'd be like, I don't remember either.
Yeah.
It just, you know, it's a lot, man. It's a lot to manage. And, but no.
So really to qualify, we're looking at credit score.
Gotcha.
Does your credit score qualify? As long as you have a 620 or higher.
Boom.
Yep. And then you're good.
Does that affect the interest rate?
It can.
Okay.
You know, interest rates really driven off of several factors. Okay. You know, we talk about risk, right? Mm-hmm. So 1 is your credit score. Mm-hmm. 2 is your loan to value. So the more equity you have in this property, the better rate you're going to have.
Right. So let me translate that. So what he's saying is, let's say we had a property that the ARV was 100,000. That's the after repair value. That means after construction, that is what we're going to sell for.
Yep.
Now, let's say that the property cost me $25,000, and then I had a repair cost or repairs of, let's just say, $20,000. My closing cost was $5,000. Small deal. There's 50% equity there, meaning that there's a chance for me to make $50,000, you know, in profit. That's not net, but that's profit because we have closing costs as well. So that deal basically it's a comfortable investment for his bank.
Well, and just let me explain rates real quick.
Go ahead.
So rates, and this isn't really on the line of credit side. This is going to be more on your refi side.
Fair enough.
Rates are going to be affected every 5%. Okay, of LTV.
I didn't know that.
So basically, 0 to 60% is all going to pretty much be the same rate structure.
I'm just going to interject, but I'm going to let you continue. When he says LTV, he means loan to value.
Yep.
That means that if I refinance and I'm taking a loan out for $70,000, but the property is worth $100,000, my LTV is 70%. If I take a loan out and I refinance at $60,000, and that's my loan amount, my LTV is 60%.
Correct.
I just want, for those who don't know,
Absolutely.
I just want them to be able to track your conversation.
This is that. Hey, we've seen it. It's natural for us to talk about.
Yeah. But so we gotta get everybody in. Perfect. We gotta bring everybody in. You know?
I appreciate. I love your heart of an educator. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Hey, well, that's where you need to join Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur, man. Get around the vocabulary, learn it. You know, get around like minds, and man, sign up for the acquisition class.
Yep.
But back to you.
Yep.
So credit affects it. The LTV
affects it. So the higher LTV, the lower your rate's going to be. And so what this basically is LLPAs, and LLPAs are what's called loan level pricing adjustments. Mm-hmm. So this is where it gets really hard when, like, if you're talking to your buddy down the road, and your buddy's like, "Hey, I got a 3.75 on this deal," and you're like, "Well, hell, I got a 4%. Why did my lender get me a 3.75?" Listen, I want to get you the lowest rate. Like I wouldn't be in business if I was giving people the highest rates possible, right?
No doubt.
You know, I don't get paid on rate, you know, so there's no incentive for me to go to a higher rate. I want to get you the lowest rate possible. So then it goes to, all right, what's your credit score? You know, your credit score is gonna help or hurt that loan level pricing adjustment. The LTV is going to affect that, right? The actual loan amount is going to affect that. So if you're at a lower loan amount versus a higher loan amount, that higher loan amount is going to get a lower interest rate because the bank is going to make more money off that, correct, right? And then the property type. This is a big one, right? So a single family dwelling versus a 2-unit dwelling, a condo, all those. So a single family dwelling is going to be the best rate out of your property groups. To get into a condo, I couldn't tell you why, but rates are worse. Multi-unit, 2, 3, 4-unit properties, they're worse rates than your single family.
So there's and those are the best deals.
They're the best deals.
Gotcha.
They're the best deals. So all those factors play in to what ultimately your rate's going to be.
And I appreciate that because I didn't know about those new qualifications, even since I spoke to your staff.
Yeah.
All right. So, man, something that this is like not lending, but this was like some cool stuff we talked about before the podcast came on. And we were talking about Ziggy. He's behind the camera, young guy.
You got to feature him on here.
One day. He when he's ready, I'm down. So Ziggy's 19, and we were just talking about, man, how everybody comes in and just like, man, I wish I had an opportunity like Ziggy, like hands-on learning and things of that nature. And I was like, man, well, you said, well, man, if he was smart, he'd get a quad.
Yeah.
And live in one for like
so
a year.
This is that game, right, that we were talking about.
Definitely. And this is the language. So I already knew. So I was like, yes, Ziggy needs a 203K loan. Yeah. And so a 203K loan, I'll let you talk about that. But that's a situation where Ziggy could have a multi-unit, live in one unit for a year, having the tenants pay his mortgage and him gain profits. But
and you don't even need to do a 203K. Man, 203K is your basically FHA's version of a rehab loan.
Correct.
And I've had multiple younger and you don't have to be younger. I don't want to single anybody out, right?
I get it.
But it's I would say it's easier for a younger person, right, to be able to do this.
Break it down.
So you can buy. FHA allows you to buy a 2, 3, or 4-unit property, and you can live in one of the units, and you only have to bring 3.5% down.
Gotcha.
All right, and live in that property for a year and rent out the other 3 units in that property. So you've got 3 doors all of a sudden that you just acquired.
Nice.
That you've got cash flow going. They're probably paying your mortgage, if not more.
And more.
And then you live in it for 12 months, and then you can do it again. You can refinance that property if you want into a conventional loan. Now that the thing is, you're only going to be able to refinance it at 75%. Actually, 70% since it's a multi-unit.
Correct.
But you can leave it as an FHA loan, rent out that 4th unit, and then go buy your own place
and repeat.
Yeah, and it's just another method. And one of the biggest conversations I have with all my investors, what's your entry strategy? What's your exit strategy? Right?
Got you.
How are you acquiring properties? What are your goals with the property? And what are you going to do in a year, 2 years from now with that property?
So I'm glad you said that. Any businessman, regardless of the business, not just real estate, should have an exit strategy. If you don't know how you want to get out, like you're basically going to run right back down to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like even with her hair company, I've began to work on my exit strategy. My team is good. They know the business. Yep. So I may sell it to them because they're younger, they're more into it. And, like I'm stepping into the next thing. And that's just a possibility.
And when I say, and I should clarify, when we say exit strategy, I don't really mean like I have to get rid of this property.
I get it.
Right? What is your exit strategy with the initial loan? Is this a long-term hold for you? Is it a flip for you? Or are you going to be living? What is that? What's your long-term goals with the property?
So let me give them something.
Yeah.
People always say, hey, Eric, like, how do you qualify a good deal? So I qualify a good deal by it fitting into the Burr equation.
Mm-hmm.
Why? If I'm a buy and hold investor, but I do about 2 flips a year.
Okay.
So I'm not aggressive, but I do it. So if the property fits the Burr method, that means that I'm buying it at 70% to ARV. That means that if I'm that means that if I'm buying it and the ARV is going to be $100,000, meaning what I'm going to sell it for, the after repair value, the property, the labor, and the closing costs are under 70%. That means I can make $30,000 on the flip.
Mm-hmm.
If I decide to hold it, I could get the property for free.
Yep.
So that's how you get a rental property for free.
Yep.
Now, if I decide to wholesale it, I understand that the ARV is $100,000. I understand that the property cost me $25,000. Now the repairs I understand are $25,000. That means that I know that you can get this property for free if I give it to you 70% to ARV.
Right.
That means that I can make anywhere between $0 to $20,000 as a wholesale deal because I know that you could purchase the property and repair it. Now you will have closing costs,
Sure.
but after you refinance, it still may be free to you. So if I'm giving you an asset that is free to you, that's going to be a great wholesale deal for me.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't know how to wholesale.
Right.
Some people know that there's margin there, therefore they just put $10,000 on it and then wholesale it. But if you understand the lending part and you understand that the buying investor's criteria, if it matches his criteria, he will buy. That will the BRRRR method kind of gives me my foundation to my investment strategy.
Yep. Well, and it's flexible, right?
Very
it's
much.
very flexible.
Very much.
And this is a good lead in because we were talking about the market right now.
Ooh,
and so
we
I mean,
talking about that. Let me tell them what I said. Though.
Yeah.
I was just like, yo, I got a property on Jefferson, and there's land next door. We're doing all this construction and shit. Me and Ziggy talking. I'm like, man, that land's for sale for like $5,000. Then I show him this,
which is a steal.
Then I show him another plot of land by another property. It's right outside of Irvington, but it's like not on the best block. But since I'm less than a quarter mile away, like the ARV is great. I mean, the comps are great. So, man, I literally tell him, like, man, I could buy them plots for like $5,000. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go back to the office and put in my bid. I look at the land on Jefferson and it's sold. But then I look at everything around and it went from 5,000 to 17,000. So before COVID, BC, it was 5,000. After COVID, like it was just like crazy. Yeah. And then the other plot of lot, the other land was like every bit of like 35, and now it's like 12.5, 12.7, 12.7 or something like that. I'm just like, what the hell? So I was letting you know, like, man, when you walked in, I'm like, man, this shit's getting out of control. The land is so expensive and property costs is just so like you then intervened and said, you know why?
Yeah. Well, and I'm gonna back up a year. Okay. Let's go back to fall of last year when I would say, and don't quote me on this, 90% of all the investors I worked with were flipping, right? Because it was a flip sell. The
market was going on.
It was going up. And there were deals. They could flip this property and they could go buy another deal like that, right?
No doubt.
Then for whatever reason in the fall last year, like people just stopped buying homes. It was really weird. There was at least in the investor market, like people just stopped buying homes. And then come COVID, everybody's buying homes, but nobody's selling their home, right? And so we have this supply and demand just complete offset. We have so many people wanting to buy homes
because the interest rate is super low right now.
Super low.
Okay.
We have nobody wanting to sell their home because they're scared.
Correct.
Like or they lost their job and they don't, so and there's tons of different reasons, but there's fear, right? There's, if I sell my home, what house do I buy? Because there's no houses on the market.
And so that is something that I've been running into a lot. A lot of people say, hey, like I'm going to sell my home because like, man, the values are up. But I'm like, okay, you can make that $40,000 by selling your home. But shit, good luck finding the next home because home went from, the regular price to $40,000 more too. Right. So you're really like in a parallel situation. Yep. And I tell people a HELOC may be an answer for you. Yeah. I mean, what do you think about that?
A HELOC?
Yeah, in those situations, because your value went up, and so if you have some equity, Like,
yeah,
and
I
you
see what
want
you're
money,
saying,
and you
for
want
sure.
some extra money to do some things.
I mean, right now, if that is an option for you, if you have a house with equity in it and you can get a HELOC on it, I mean,
can I
lock
tell
that
you a
baby
magic
in.
trick?
But there's the there's always risk, right? In everything we do.
Always.
The risk is the market we're in right now. The values of houses, are they real or are they inflated? And if you get that line of credit for up to the maximum you can get, and the next thing you know, which I don't think is going to happen, but there's the risk that the value drops, and now all of a sudden you're underwater in your home with a HELOC.
So I'm gonna tell you my story. I got a HELOC in February. So a HELOC is a home equity line of credit, meaning that my home, I bought it. I own $150,000. Let's say that I own $150,000, but I knew that my home was worth at least $215 over time, and so it got evaluated at $215. Huntington Bank gave me a HELOC of 95%.
Yeah. So let's go back to what you were talking about, banks. What banks to go to, right? Those local lenders, those credit unions.
Okay.
Those are if you're looking into a line of credit, those are the people to talk to.
Boom. At least he's guiding you in the right way. Don't waste your time with the bullshit with Jared on that. Yep. Go to your local bank. So I got a HELOC for 95% to value. That means they gave me.
When did you do that, in February?
Yeah, February.
Yeah, because
pre-COVID.
I don't think they do that anymore.
No, they don't. They don't. That's why I said I got to tell my story. So they gave me like 207, a value of 207. That's 95% to ARV, and I owed 150. So basically, I got a credit line for $57,000. So it is a mortgage on the home, but if I don't use it, I don't owe any payment. If I use 20,000 of it, I just pay interest on it for the next 10 years. And so if you have a home and you have equity in it, like, a lot of people pride themselves on having the equity, but if you're not using the equity to leverage and grow and or build or reinvest it, like, you're really just sitting on cash.
Yeah.
So
it's cash. So it's cash sitting in the mortar and walls.
Come on,
right?
Now.
So I won't get into this a ton, but I had a financial advisor that I was talking to earlier this year, and he changed my whole perspective of mortgages. I've been doing mortgages for a long time. Mm-hmm. So when he changed my mind about a mortgage, like, in the way I think about it, you probably did something. And the verbiage he used was, when you take a mortgage, and we're talking primary mortgages, if you own a home, you're taking a mortgage out not against the home, but against your income. Mm-hmm. And if you lose your income, you have no way of getting the property or refinancing or getting the equity that you put into the property. So if you're a Dave Ramsey listener, lover, like close your ears right now. Like,
hey, you're going to, hey, so he speaks to.
I love Dave Ramsey, but
man, no. But he's preaching to the poor sometimes.
So the thing I love about Dave Ramsey is, if you are in consumer debt, I love everything he's
100%. I agree with that.
But I respect that. But his take on lending and the investor in real estate is, he got screwed in a time period where there weren't very many lending laws.
I agree.
In the lending world and the lending laws now, you're protected, and you still have to be careful, right? You still have to make sure your deals are good, but it's not the same world that he was lending in. So,
man, thank you. Hey, that's the word of the day, man. Dave Ramsey's worth like $55 million. Google that shit.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, he's not investor friendly. He's definitely a great contributor to those who work 9 to 5s and have debt and or trying to work themselves out of tough situations and are trying to develop their skill set and to getting debt free. Mm-hmm. The snowball effect. Minimizing debt, how to use credit cards and leverage. But, people like me and yourself, like, we make money off debt.
Yeah.
I have $3.5 million worth of debt.
Well, that's because if you look at it as debt, sure, debt's a bad thing.
Correct.
But if you're looking at debt to acquire assets, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah,
right?
No doubt.
Debt is bad.
No doubt.
But debt to make money is a good thing, in my opinion.
So my translation of that is, if it's paying for itself, it's good debt.
Yep.
And
if you've read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, I think that's right, exactly what he talks about.
No doubt.
So this financial advisor, his what he talked to me about was people, because what I've always been taught is, right, if you can qualify for a mortgage, you should get the lowest term possible and pay this thing off as quickly as possible. But really, in this day and age with where rates are, you should take the highest term, get a 30-year mortgage with the lowest out-of-pocket cost, and whatever that. So your goal should still be pay off your primary residence, right? But
that's how you retire today.
Yep. But if whatever that difference in payment between a 30 and a 15-year, if you can afford a 15-year and it's, let's say, a $300 difference,
which you will be,
put that money into an interest-bearing account that's liquid, because now instead of putting it into the brick and mortar of your house by paying extra, you're putting over here in a liquid account that if for God knows
shit
whatever
goes
reason,
bad,
right,
like Corona,
if life happens,
Corona is the rainy day,
and you lose your income, then you have liquid funds. But because of the way the interest rates are going right now with the stock market and being able to earn interest, you're going to be able to earn more interest over here than you will by putting it in your home, and you'll actually be able to pay your home off quicker as one lump sum, and you won't lose the liquidity of your house or the liquidity of your funds. So now the difference, right? The difference between the Dave Ramsey method and that method is behaviors, right? So if you can't control your spending,
if you can't be disciplined,
then follow the Dave Ramsey method to the T. But if you're good with your money, then man,
get a 30-year mortgage.
That's what we're all here for, right?
And pay the difference save the difference to the side and get big.
Keep your money liquid.
There it is, man. That's a word. All right, guys. So we're coming to the end of this. Like, do you guys have any questions, man? You can put it on my Facebook, or you could text me at 317-597-2347. Again, 317-597-2347. Text me your questions. Somebody asked, what's a heat lock? Man, so you almost spelled it right. So it's a home equity line of credit.
HELOC.
So if you basically, the equity in your home, if it exceeds most of the time 75% or so, or no, I'll take it back, 85% or so, or 80%. So I do know this. Huntington Bank is doing 85% now through COVID, meaning that let's say you have a $100,000 home, you only owe $50,000. Their heat lock percentage is 85%. That means that you would get about $35,000. That, in essence, is your money, but they give you a line of credit. You could use it as cash, or you could use it as just kind of like a credit line. You use $5,000. Basically, you got to pay it back. So, but you're paying yourself back that. They add their interest. If you're not using it, you don't pay any interest.
Biggest question I get every day. Biggest question. Can I transfer my conventional loan that I just closed in my personal name into my LLC after closing? Here's the answer. You can with any lender as long as the loan is a Fannie Mae loan. If it's a Freddie Mac loan, no way. If it's a Fannie Mae loan, you can transfer it into your LLC with no repercussions.
I need to look into that shit myself. Got you. All right. So this lady says, is your company similar to a hard money company?
Man, that's a great question. That's probably the best. No. So yes and no. We are not a hard money lender. If you need a hard money lender, let me know. I've got a couple of them that are really good.
Follow him. His Facebook is right there below.
You can follow me on Facebook. They got it? Okay, perfect.
Ziggy took care of that.
Perfect. Ziggy, the man. The biggest difference between us and hard money loans is, one, our interest rates are going to be lower than hard money loans. You're going to be required, you're going to be required to bring potentially a little bit more out of pocket from the acquisition side, but your interest rates are going to be lower. So
let me explain that.
Yep.
I don't know what your term's at, but interject where your terms come in at. So if I qualify for a line of credit, let's say for $1 million through his company, now I could go out and he's going to say, hey, whatever I lend to has to be 70% to ARV. So I get an email, I get a lead. The property's worth $200,000 after repairs. If he tells me that his LTV is 70%, his loan to value is going to be 140 on that property.
Yeah. And here's where it gets, and this is why I didn't, I don't want to talk very specific because every deal is a little different. Every person.
Correct.
So this is my rule of thumb. If you're a new investor, just add 5% to this. All right. So if your I'm just going to use easy numbers. If your acquisition price is $50,000, you're going to be required to bring 10% of that. So $5,000.
Boom.
If you're let's just assume your ARV is 120,000. Let's just say 100 for easy. So
easy numbers.
Yep. So 75%. So your maximum loan amount is going to be 75,000 off of that ARV. So you're $45,000 because you put $5,000 down. So we're going to lend $45,000 off the acquisition. So that means you have $30,000 in repair costs that we can fund.
Boom.
Right. Plus closing costs, which whatever those.
Now
those
you land on closing. You land on closing, or I have to pay for closing?
You have to pay for closing costs.
There it is.
Yep.
All right. So closing costs is your expense, and you still need a little bit of upfront money for your contractors, unless you want them to wait until they finish. Then you turn in your repair cost sheet to him, and then they reimburse you, which I would say give or take that about a week or so, because you got to turn it in, they got to file it, and then the inspector got to come out. Then 2 or 3 days after that, they kick it out. So
just assume 10% of acquisition and rehab plus closing costs.
Gotcha. So a guy said, I'm not from Indiana. Do you lend everywhere?
Absolutely.
Boom. Is that all states?
All states except for maybe like 3 states.
Okay, cool.
So that's on, and we can do that on the conventional or the LLC side.
Gotcha. That means if you're purchasing your own home, he could assist you. If you're purchasing rental properties, he could assist you.
Or if you're refinancing your rental properties into your conventional loan.
Gotcha. The next one said, if I'm purchasing a home for myself, how much over 20% should I put down? Now, she's trying to defeat PMI. You know, so PMI is like.
So this is where this gets real fun.
All right.
Let me ask you this question. So
I got a VA loan. I was in the Army.
Oh, well, then you're
I'm saucy. Hey, so can I tell you my story? It's gonna be real fast.
You probably put nothing down, nothing PMI.
Down. I bought it for $171. I owe $150. Today it's worth $235. Then I just refinanced for $2.6.
Yeah.
So my payment's like $825. I'm living like a college kid. I actually just thought about getting.
You're basically paying rent,
man. and then like I literally just got a quote for solar panels.
Yeah.
Because I don't even want to pay electric bill. That's my biggest bill outside of gas and food. So, like, man, I'm blessed. If you are in a situation, you might want to call Jared where you want to refinance and maybe get a lower rate if you're in the 4s.
Oh, if you're in the 3s, let me know.
Boom, there it is.
So, so let's talk about PMI real quick on personal.
And her question, though, was, should I put down any more than 20%?
Well, all right. So 20% down, right? You eliminate mortgage insurance. What we talked about earlier, loan level pricing adjustments.
So depending on the price of your home, your home insurance could be anywhere between $75 to $200 $200.
Yep.
Fair enough?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
So if you put 20% down, you do not have PMI.
Okay.
Right? But you're also at the very highest LTV that a bank's going to lend without PMI. PMI is a safer loan for the bank because what PMI does is it goes into this giant fund that if for some reason you foreclose on your home, the bank's getting paid their money, right? So having PMI on your loan actually is a safer loan for the bank. So the
interest rate goes up.
The interest rate goes down if you have PMI. So let's say you have. So here's where you can.
I'm learning.
This is where you can get crazy, and with using your cash, and this is where I come into play, right? And getting creative with how do I make your money work for you, and so if you have 20% to put down, typically what's a better deal, and this is where you have to have a loan officer that understands what your long-term goals are. So if this is your forever home, we'll take your 20% and back it up to 18%, 17%. Now you got PMI, right? But now you've also got 3% to play with. So what we'll do with that 3% is buy out your MI and buy your rate down.
What's MI?
PMI.
PMI.
Mortgage insurance.
Got you. I just making sure I know what you're talking about.
So we're gonna buy out your mortgage insurance and buy your rate down. So you're gonna have a lower payment at a 17% down than a 20% down with a lower interest rate.
That's game. That's game. There you go, Maria. He gave it to you.
So it's you can play around with that. There's a lot of things to do.
Let me go to my app, man. Let me go to my app.
Dude, drink that so we can have some Screwball.
All right. Oh, hey man. So shout out, man. He done brought like Wathins. You know what I'm saying? Then he said like, "This is our drink for the podcast." And
we got a little dessert whiskey.
Then Screwball is our dessert drink, bruh. And then we went through half the bottle. It's okay.
I'm over here. I'm like, why is my drink like still
all right?
full?
So give me a question. So I gotta. He wrote me a paragraph. I don't know why he wrote me a paragraph, and he knows that. Like, okay. So for an individual looking to get into conventional loans to buy and hold, how important is DTI?
Well, it's huge. So there's three things on a conventional loan I look at. One, does your credit score qualify? Especially for purchasing, do you have enough cash to close? And does your debt to income qualify?
Boom.
So there are thresholds with your debt to income ratio.
Got
so
you. He got a couple questions, so I'm gonna go to the next one. I have a W-2 job and I'm self-employed, but since I write most of my employment income off, all the taxes in my W-2 and so I only show pretty much all the taxes in my W-2 income. So I can answer that. You just need to make sure that you got a nice threshold of W-2 income.
Well, so here's this is getting deep into the mortgage guidelines.
Okay.
So are you ready for this? So if your self-employed income is your secondary source of income, and you're showing a loss on your self-employed income, we do not have to count that against you. So we can use your W-2 income as long as that self-employed income is a secondary source of income. If that is your primary source of income and you're working just a part-time job as a W-2 and your self-employed is your primary source of income and you show a loss, then we have to count all that loss.
Shit, I'm about to start like subtracting everything, bro. All right. Now, he says his question is how the heck do I ever quit my W-2 gig, you know, if I'm like writing off so much on the other side? I think you kind of pretty much dabbled into that.
So I think you got to, well, one, I should preface too that, you know, all the LLC loans we talked about on the commercial side, you can close those in your personal name too if you don't have an LLC. So if if you're wanting to quit your W-2 job, one, I would think really hard about that. You know, can you sustain without your W-2 income?
And make sure you could afford health insurance, because that shit is not a joke.
It's very expensive.
Man.
You know, and here's the thing, right? And you know, we talked about Dave Ramsey earlier. One of the things I 100% agree with Dave Ramsey is that your income is your biggest source of wealth, to increase your wealth that you have. So, man, I would look really hard about quitting your W-2 job if you can sustain both.
So I love that you said that. And so a lot of people ask me, you know, when I entertain them, you know, they ask, hey, by the way, man, my camera guy got lazy. Like, he just got it on us. He ain't really working, man. Like fuck that. We got to call him out, man. We put on a show, man. Work them fucking cameras. You know what I'm saying? So
he's 19. It's okay.
Man, he know what he doing. So I'm gonna be honest. I gotta give him credit, man. He put this shit on, man. So big shout out to Ziggy. So now check this out. So a lot of people ask me, what are my goals? So I say to own 100 doors and make somewhere between $80,000 to $100,000 a month. But I'm not there, obviously.
But here's the question I would ask:
Why?
Like, because there's difference between numbers, right? Like, yes. and then the why behind those numbers.
Gotcha.
And that's what I would ask the person who wrote the
I'll break
question
that down.
Why do you want to quit your W-2 job?
So my W-2 job is her hair company. I'm paid as the president.
Right.
I'm gonna pay myself right around $75,000. I can make anywhere between $300,000 to $400,000. I've made $1 million, but I realized that was stupid when you paid 50% in fucking taxes.
Right.
That's not what I want to do. So I realized where my pocket was tax bracket wise. So it's right around $300,000 to $400,000, but minimum. My floor is $250,000 because that keeps I can obtain the lending that I need to. So I think that when you're referring to the W-2 worker, the lending power is greater when you have that consistent income.
Yeah, you because if you don't, not to say you can't qualify with all, but you put yourself into a box that says this is the only thing I can do.
Exactly.
Yep.
But when I have the income from her hair and then I have my income from real estate and then it combines into that, I'm able to continuously borrow and lend every year, because if they get a fix and flip loan from you, they need to know that you have to requalify every year.
Every 12 months.
Boom. And so that keeps me being able to borrow from you, and that keeps me able to borrow from others to keep my cash flow just growing and building.
Yep.
So yes, what I'm building is building, but I want to be able to grow it and scale it. And so if I'm making under 250, my lending and my purchase power goes down. Yep. So that could slow down the speed of my velocity of growth. Yeah.
All day.
So that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now it's Tay Davis. How many payments before PMI drops to 18 and 19%? That varies depending on your personal loan.
Yeah, and it's also going to depend on the mortgage insurance company. Some of them, even if you get, so your mortgage insurance, if you're on a conventional loan, should drop off once you get to 80%.
Gotcha.
However, some mortgage insurance companies require at least 12 to 24 months of payments before it'll drop off.
Understood. Cliff asks, all real estate is going to have some type of personal guarantee, so they will pull your personal credit. But there are programs in which you hold title through the company.
Hold title through like the LLC?
Yeah. So I think the biggest question is this, though. Getting into real estate, should I start with my name or should I start with LLC?
Man, so one, that's a question for a CPA.
Okay,
right?
Got you.
But two, if you can close a loan in your LLC, but you also have to have a personal guarantor.
And I'm the guarantor.
You're the guarantor.
Yeah.
And as long as that loan goes in your LLC, it's, like that doesn't go against your credit. Like that loan won't show up on your personal credit. But we do have to look at your personal credit as the guarantor of the LLC. Got you. Here's an interesting thing too. If you have an LLC with a partnership,
that's different.
Yeah, it gets a little different. Talk. So the difference between like conventional and LLC lending, which this is bizarre to me, on the conventional side, we're going to go off the lowest mid score of the borrowers. On the LLC side, we're going to go off the highest mid score of the borrowers.
That's for those who want to partner with somebody. You better check your partner. Be like, man, what the fuck is your credit? Don't fuck this shit up. You know what I mean? Like, let's get it together. Yep. So, say that one more time for the people.
So, LLC lending, at least with us, highest mid-score borrower, guarantor. On the conventional side, we're going to go off the lowest mid-score borrower if you have multiple people.
Boom. Good stuff. That's stuff that I didn't know. Man, we've had a good time, man. We've been here for an hour and more.
Has it been an hour?
Yeah, man. That's what happens. Hold on. So I gotta take this back, man.
You got a lot to drink there. I'm waiting for you.
Hold on. So what we got here, bro?
This is peanut butter whiskey. It's Screwball.
Peanut butter whiskey.
This is,
So when he came in, he was like, "Bro, I got something for us." The waiters was our dish, and he called this the dessert. Ziggy, he got juice. He 21 and under. He got juice. So I got one more question, but man,
cheers to this.
Cheers, yeah.
I appreciate having me on.
No doubt. I understand. Wow,
that's amazing, isn't it?
Wow,
it's good.
I apologize, Ziggy. But I'm really not sorry. Screwball, man, peanut butter whiskey, man. Like you know what I mean? He's putting us on game. I like it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, so give me one second.
Talk to me about this, because you probably understand this honestly better than I do, but I get asked this a lot. People always ask me, hey, what do you think the ARV, what do you think this house is going to appraise for? And here's what I've noticed in Indy, and tell me if I'm wrong on this. And Indy, I think, is a very unique market because of the low entry points, right? And the cash flow you can get on these properties.
Shit, low entry points.
This is why,
low entry points.
This is why all you California investors keep me up at night, being local. You know, I love all of you, but man, I don't get much sleep because of y'all. And here's the answer I give everybody is that it's street by street. If you have a property on a street that is 10% rehabbed, I mean, just roll the dice. Like, you know, who knows where that value is going to come in at. If you have a property that's 80% rehabbed on that street, like, you've got a pretty good idea of where that property value is going to come in at. So is that accurate?
Man, I don't really roll like that.
That's fine.
But I understand. I understand your perspective. All right, so me and Ziggy, as I'm teaching Ziggy, this is what we talk about. I call it the juice. So let's talk about St. Clair Place. You familiar with that area? Mm-hmm. So you're talking about rural. You're going in towards downtown.
By the way, if you've ever been to Rural Inn, like if you like whiskey, Rural Inn. There's my plug to Rural Inn.
That's funny. All right. So let's say that, you know, you're going to Rural Inn. So that's Keystone Ave, south of 10th Street, going towards downtown. Tech High School, south of Tech High School, going towards downtown, where the old Angie's List was, and things of that nature. Like, right around Angie's List, all that's pretty much developed. We're talking about streets that are 80% developed. The people that are living there that could maintain there, they own their homes, and so they could afford to pay the increase in taxes. You know what I mean? But a lot of people are upset about the gentrification because their grandparents still have a mortgage, and then the tax increase of $3,000-$4,000 kind of affects them on a fixed income. So I definitely understand both perspectives. Yep. So I'm not going into a street that's 85% gentrified already. Why? Because the property or the land is going to be astronomical, because the guys before me now sold houses for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. So the land is going to cost me $75,000.
Sure.
So what I like to do is I use my agent, but I have access to her backside, meaning that you could ask any real estate investor to become their assistant. They could put you on their MyBoard account. I give mine as a fat tip. And annually, I could just stay on her account, and I could like do my own comps. They have YouTube videos on how to do your own comps. I keep mine at a quarter mile. So a quarter mile could be like 2 blocks over.
Sure.
So as I use somebody like you use a mile or half mile.
I don't look at anything.
Your underwriters though. Your underwriters do.
Appraiser.
Your appraiser does
though.
Yeah. And so that's to my benefit.
Yeah.
So I have a house on Jefferson, which is 3 blocks from the juice, but it's a quarter mile.
Yeah.
Therefore, there's only 3 to 5 rehabs on that block. And then let's say it's 25 houses. That means the juice is coming, but it's not there.
Sure.
So in essence, I'm using the comps from where there's 80 to 90% rehabs block.
Yeah.
But I'm over here where it's developing. And so because they have to come that way. And so yes, that street's not fully developed. It's more 25% developed, but I'm able to leverage the comps to do a BRRRR method. So if I have to hold it for 3 years so that the block is now 80% developed, I could then sell not for a 200. My ARV today is 185, but I may be able to sell for 250 in 5 years. Mm-hmm. So that's my investment strategy. So that's why I said you're right. Like you could go in there, but like, I mean, you're dedicated to building a $500,000 home. That means you need to put a basement, first floor, and the basement's $50,000 just to dig and develop. Right. I don't want to do that. So like, I just go right outside the juice.
Love it.
So that's kind of like my investment strategy.
I love that you have the juice implemented in
your strategy. Man, because like sometimes your shit dry, man. You're not making no money, but but the juice is the money. Give me 1 second. All right. So somebody, Cato asks, where can I get a HELOC, man? So I got mine in Huntington Bank. They're giving me 80%, 85% to ARV today.
Old National.
Before COVID, it was 95%. My guy just said Old National, which is across the street from me here in Broad Ripple. So their address is 6124 College Avenue. You could go there, man, and get that done, man. Man, so it was great, man.
Yeah.
This shit's fire. This shit's fire.
I thought you'd like that.
Hey, man. Thank you for coming through,
hold on,
man.
I need to pour just to get a cheers.
That's my type of guy. That's my type of guy.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Ziggy?
Hey.
It was awesome.
Ziggy went through his juice. Hey, so we're done here, man. If you got any questions, man, shoot it to us on the Facebook comments. Also, make sure you visit entrepreneur.entrepreneur.com, man. So there we have these type of conversations, but we like it's on a different level. It's on a personal level every Thursday. I also show you how I acquire homes, how I wholesale homes, and basically how you get started in real estate investing, man. I am thankful for this guy coming through, really giving you like different hints and or tips on how to get into real estate, man. It's priceless. Thank you, and we're out.